I'm Steve Wiggins, and this is the Groundworks Ministries podcast. Now, today we're reading from the book of Hebrews, chapter 6. Let's focus on verses 10 through 12. For God is not unjust. He will not forget your work and the love you showed His name when you served the saints, and you will continue to serve them. And now we want each of you to demonstrate the same diligence for the final realization of your hope, so that you won't become lazy, but imitators of those who inherit the promises through faith and perseverance. Now, when my grandfather died, he left my mother some property in rural Arkansas, and we were all excited. I recall driving down a maze of dirt roads to view her estate. And what we found, though, was about 30 acres of dense forest swallowing up some rickety old shack. I remember my mom shook her head and she said, "Not worth it." And then we drove away. To my knowledge, nothing was ever done with that land. And sometimes dreams and reality collide with damaging consequences. And seldom are we told that we will have to work hard at things that we've been given by grace. And when this reality sets in, people often lose interest. This was the case with Israel. After they entered the promised land, God had sworn to deliver them, and He was faithful to His word. But once Israel crossed over, it was their job to dispossess the land's former inhabitants, who at that time were the present inhabitants. And this too, God promised, would be completed if Israel would boldly go forth and trust Him as before, to drive out their enemies. He did not need their labor in order to accomplish His purposes, but He gave them opportunities to be faithful so that they could experience His faithfulness to His word. You see, that's how their relationship works. Hence, the pedestrian Israelite was given limited participation in the fulfillment of God's promise. God intended to use their hard work, empowered by His Holy Spirit, to reach goals set forth in His Word, goals that were impossible apart from God's intervention. And God chose to elevate Israel's faith through faith-stretching tasks. He didn't just say, you need more faith? Sure, zap, I'll give you more faith. That's not how it works. You want more faith? Well, then be faithful, and then let the Lord get you through a situation. Some of the tribes obeyed, driving out the former inhabitants of the land. Others compromised. They made their enemies into slaves, and still others were cowering, and they never took hold of what God had promised. Once they had been delivered by grace through faith, then their discipleship stalled. They stopped being disciplined to obey the Lord and move forth. So the author of Hebrews was drawing a parallel of the deliverance of the Moses-era Israel with salvation through the Messiah, Jesus. You see, while we are saved by grace apart from works, once we have been delivered, we must bear the armor of God and dispossess those former inhabitants. What do I mean? Those attitudes and influences, those thoughts and actions that used to drive us. We have to drive them out because they once controlled our lives, and now Jesus wants all control. Our command to fight does not diminish God's saving grace. The Lord still delivers us by His power, but under the condition that we remain vigilant and diligent. Again, God gives believers a limited participation in things that He doesn't need us to do in order for us to experience His faithfulness at a deep level. Why? Because He loves us. Because He has chosen to show Himself faithful to the world through our faithfulness to Him. He wants the world to see how He can change a life through you. And then they see you and they don't glorify you. They glorify the Lord because they knew you before. So obviously God's done a thing. So let us strive to be imitators of those who inherit the promises through faith and perseverance. Again, we are not saved by faith and works. Rather, we are saved by faith that gets to work. I'm Steve Wiggins, and this is the Groundworks Ministries podcast. You know, Groundworks Ministries operates entirely through financial donations from faithful people just like you. And yes, we need your monthly support, now more than ever. Donating is secure and it's easy at our website, groundworksministries.com. You know another way to help? Tell people about Groundworks Ministries. Share these podcasts with friends and family. Share them on your social media. And of course, you can always direct folks to our website, groundworksministries.com.